Hello, I'm Bill O'Donnell, and welcome to another program on spirituality. Today in the studio, I'm indeed thrilled to have as my guest Father Vincent Dominguez from St. Anthony's Parish in Pecos, New Mexico, who is also the state chaplain for the Knights of Columbus. Welcome, Father.
Thank you very much, Bill.
It's great to have you. I literally just met Father, and before the show, he was kind enough to give me the sacrament of reconciliation, so if I'm glowing in the dark a little bit, it's the Holy Spirit right here at the set. Father, tell us a little about your background, where you were raised, and I understand you're a local boy. Your family's from here, Santa Fe.
Yes, I was, my mom and dad, my mother was born and raised in La Cienega. My father was born in Anton Chico, and they met here in Santa Fe. My mom graduated from Santa Fe High. And they married, and they wanted to have a family. But they knew they couldn't make it economically here, so they decided to make a decision to move to California, where jobs were more abundant and they paid better. So they moved there, and I was born and raised in Chula Vista near San Diego until I was 13 years old. And Precious Blood Catholic Church was our home parish. And I remember it very well because of the priests were the same ones that baptized us, the same ones when I left, they were the same priests. And then after that, when I was 13, I decided to move back home. So we, just right down the street from the Santa Fe Community College, we built a house with my dad. And I used to run these arroyos here for football when I played for Santa Fe High.
Yeah.
But
what years were you at Santa Fe High?
From actually it's from 10th grade to 79 when I graduated.
Okay, 79. And then what did you do after high school? After
high school, I was not sure what to do because there weren't very many jobs, and things were kind of political. If you didn't know somebody, you couldn't get in. So I thought to myself, I'm getting depressed here. I think I need to decide to do something. So I made the decision to enter the Air Force in August of 1980. Mm-hmm. And I served in the Air Force for 6 years.
Okay, what kind of duty did you see in the Air Force?
I was just in a training unit with weapons and armament systems. We had big manuals and all the weapons that the different aircrafts carried. Mm-hmm. In my case, it was T-38, just a training unit, so I had to learn the weapons on that system for the training pilots out of different countries, and from the Air Force Academy would come there. In Holloman Air Force Base.
Oh, at Holloman. Did you serve overseas as well? Or
no, never.
All at Holloman. That's great. So when you got out of the Air Force, then what did you do?
When I got out of the Air Force, there were some problems. I had a brother that passed away. My mom asked me to come back, but they kept trying to keep me in the service because they liked being a lot the colonel. And I need to go back home.
Was he older or younger, this brother?
He was older. He was serving in the Navy, and he had an accident on his ship, and he died at 23 years old in Naples in an accident.
What was his name?
Richard Dominguez. Yeah.
Do you have other siblings as well?
I have 5 other brothers, but I had another one that passed away 3 years after that in an accident on our freeway, an DWI with a drunk driver hit him. He died. So and then I have 2 sisters. Mm-hmm. I'm the 3rd oldest of the 8.
Oh, I'm the 3rd of 5. That's funny. So when did the call to the priesthood develop? Of course, I understand you also went to school here at the Santa Fe Community College, where we're taping.
Well, after I got out of the service, my brother was in the service, and he got out and got custody of his 2 little boys. So I was living with my mom and them. And I said, well, I might as well take some courses while I'm working for the city. So I started taking some courses in English, which I used to hate. But I had the best teacher in the whole world over here, so that made me think different about it.
Who was your teacher?
I can't remember her name, but she was a writing analyst, and she would break the grade down into 3 different structure, mechanics, content, which I'd never had a teacher like that. And she color-coded everything. So I learned a lot from her, and I used to hate it. But then when I had her, she was so patient, I began to like it. So it changed me a lot. And then they had good tutoring if I needed tutoring. I took computer science, I took math, I took, what else did I take? Accounting, which I was pretty good at.
Here at Santa Fe Community College?
Yeah.
Oh, great. And then where did you go after the community college?
Well, after the community college, I was taking some courses, but then we had another thing that happened. My sister was having difficulty with 2 of her children, and we ended up adopting 2 little boys at 5 and 6, plus my brother's 2 boys we had. So we were raising 4 boys, and I was coaching a lot and working full-time for the city.
City of
So,
Santa Fe.
Yeah, so I backed off schooling for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started later, as the boys got older, I began to discern, well, people kept telling me, you don't belong here. I used to hear it in the service. You belong somewhere else. Even in the city, people said, why are you here? You should be doing something else. I was like, why do you say that? It doesn't seem like you belong here. I started praying a little as I got older, and I said, well, God, maybe I missed my calling. Maybe you wanted me to be a priest. And even some girls that I was engaged to said, I think you should be a priest.
Girls plural.
Yes.
I love that.
I used to
Okay.
date some girls, and they would say, well, I think you're supposed to be a priest. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So I started to discern. Took a little over a year. One day I heard in a sermon, you got to leave those you love to follow Jesus. And I've heard it before, but it just stayed in my head for a long time. And then I said, well, that's probably just something just made up or something. So I started discerning it over a year and realized that whenever someone said the word priest, this joy would come back into my heart. And I said, I'm probably just making that up too. So, but I just kept discerning, and it just would not go away. So I kind of knew, in a sense, I started to seek counsel through a Jesuit priest of the Carmelites, retired Van Anderson Bakewell.
I knew Father Bakewell.
And he was very good to me, and the Carmelite nuns were very good to me. So I just started to discern, and eventually I ended up with an interview with the bishop. So that,
Who was your vocation director at the time?
Carney, Father
Father
Carney
John
up in Los
Carney.
Alamos.
Yeah. Okay. And so then, when you made the plunge, where did he send you?
Well, first of all, they told me I was going to Eugene, Oregon, which I was very happy about that because I love the mountains. But then at the last second, they changed it and sent me to Holy Apostles in Cromwell, Connecticut.
And how long were you there?
5 years.
Okay. And when did you graduate?
I graduated in 2002. I think it was December 11th.
And then you were ordained here at St. Francis Cathedral Basilica?
Yes, December 14th, 2002.
Okay. Yeah. Tell us about your experience then of being ordained to the transitional diaconate into the priesthood. What effect did that actually have on you?
Well, I didn't like school,
Oh.
but I did well in it. But my mom knew I didn't like school, but she'd send me little notes, you'll be fine, do this. She said, you have to suffer for anything you want in life badly enough. So she's very encouraging. And Father John Carney was like the best. He lightened the edge. He's like a comedian. So whenever he was around, he would make things, lighten things up very easily. So if I was struggling a little bit, it made it a little easier.
And your rector was Father Mosey, correct?
Yes.
And he was a good man too, as I understand.
Yes, he's pretty good.
Yeah. So then, here you are at the cathedral, and you were the only one in your class, so you were ordained by yourself. Tell us about that experience. What's it like to be ordained a priest?
Well, I think it kind of overwhelmed me. I think when I walked into the cathedral, I didn't expect the cathedral to be full. And my family being from New Mexico, and I was involved in prison ministry. I was involved in coaching for 3 sports a year for almost 9 years, 10 years with my brother, Patrick. I was overwhelmed when I walked in the cathedral. It was packed, and that was hard. But I think what made it harder is I was wishing my grandpa was there, my grandfather, who had a great impact on me. My mom and dad were there, but my grandfather and my grandmother had a great influence on me because of their strong faith. And they're very family-oriented and very loving and kind and truthful, very truthful people, because they're from old ranching families. So I think emotionally it kind of freaked me out. I keep control of myself pretty good, but that was very difficult when I walked in.
And you told me before the program that some of your ancestors were Jewish. Was this the one? Was this the grandfather?
I think it was on his side, Martinez, and there were some customs. They were sheep herders. One of the customs was they said the eldest son had to stand behind the father when they ate, and no one could begin to eat till he ate, and he led the prayers. So, and he was very strict on Sundays. Like, you do not work. It's for you and God and your family alone. That's it. So I was raised with that idea and thought in my mind, and he was a very good grandfather, and I appreciate it. He was very paternal and very quiet, but very simple.
What was his name?
Luis Martinez.
And they were from where?
Originally, they say they came down from Raton, and I don't know if they did some mining, because I know a lot of mining went up there, But he was a sheep herder in the Boyeros. I guess their family used to be from Boyeros and Roy in those areas. And they talk about how they used to barter for things, and they'd use what they had raised to barter, like the sheep and the crops that they had. And eventually something happened where they kind of lost the farm when the transition from the Americans came in with the lawyers, and they only spoke Spanish, and a lot of people lost their properties because of that. So they ended up leasing land in La Cienega, and he married a Ramona Pino from in those areas. They were turkey farmers.
So it sounds like you have a lot of relatives here in New Mexico.
Yes.
Okay. So let's go back again to your ordination, because a lot of people have not experienced that, obviously, and they don't. What do you recall happened when the Archbishop laid his hand on you and made you a priest forever? What do you recall from that moment?
Let's see, I think it was, you don't live for yourself anymore. You live for service to God and to the people. In the sense that now it's not just your life.
Yeah.
Your life belongs to all these other people.
Yeah. And how did it change your relationship with your family?
Well, it has made it real. They're my family, but my family now is my flock. I have to take care of them spiritually, and I guess in a sense we're their spiritual coaches, and give them the sacraments so that we believe where Christ is present, that they can encounter Christ in a powerful way to help them to transform their lives and recognize their potential, and that God will help them to realize that if they're open to that.
And this is your first pastorate now at Pecos?
It's my second one.
Okay, and where were you before this?
After I was ordained, I was placed in San Jose with Father Dennis Garcia, who was newly ordained just shortly before me. So
that's in Albuquerque?
Yes.
Okay, on Broadway.
So I was there for 6 months. And then after that, I was given my first assignment in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is St. Thomas the Apostle. Okay. And so I went there, and I had 8 missions and 1 church over a 40-mile stretch.
How long were you there?
5 years, almost exactly 5 years.
That's very close to Christ in the desert. Did you get to
Yes.
meet all those fellows out there?
Yes, they prayed for my soul every day. So thank God for that.
That's great.
And I appreciated that very much.
Yeah. So Abbot Philip took you under his wing.
Yeah, spiritually they couldn't really help a lot because they're a monastery.
Yeah.
But they did help, as we believe in the church prayer offered in sincerity is more powerful than anything you do for anybody.
That's great. Okay, so here we have you now. And the people note in the background, this is the banner for the Knights of Columbus. How did you get involved with the Knights of Columbus? How did you first meet them?
Well,
and what tell us what they are?
I have a neat story about that. The Knights of Columbus, I think, first began with I was first enrolled in them because of the insurance program for the diocese.
Which one?
The insurance program was for a life insurance policy. And also later with the priests, they also do an extended sign up for extended care when we get older. So to help us in case we need extra medical attention or things like that.
So you joined after you became ordained?
Before. Actually.
Oh, while you're seminary?
Yeah. And I think I was impressed with it because they're very pro-life, because they see every human being as something special and sacred. And that's what we should be seeing each other as, something holy and sacred to God, in the eyes of God. And that we should respect one another and each other's dignity and help each other. And I think what moved me, I think, a lot was I had this little boy, and when I was teaching catechism in Connecticut, and they said he was a very troubled ADD, and he was Black Irish. His name was Sean Griffin. And they said, well, you can have this kid. In other words, they were saying, like, he's a little terrorist. And I was kind of laughing about it because I raised kids and dealt with kids most of my life. And this little kid comes in, this cutest kid you ever saw. I was like, this kid's a terrorist. He's jet black hair, blue eyes, freckles, real light complected. And he started, and he was his attention span was very off. And I thought to myself, well, he's not that bad. So I was asking him questions, even though he wasn't paying attention. He knew all the answers. So I said, you know what, you're my new assistant. And he became my assistant. His mother said he hated catechism. After that, he liked it. But when he became 13, he did something on his own which moved me very much. At 13 years old, he decided to raise money on his own for the Eagle Scouts award to build a tomb for the unborn. And he raised all the money himself through the help of the seminary. and built a tomb for the unborn that helps the Knights of Columbus. And that moved me a lot.
Before I forget, though, people at home may not know what the Knights of Columbus is. Can you tell us a bit about their background, how they got started, and what their mission is?
Father Michael McGivney, an Irish priest, was in an immigrant community in New York. And a lot of the immigrants are coming from Ireland. And he saw that in the poverty and everything, a lot of the families were having problems. They were struggling a lot. And they were actually in a very strong Protestant section, and they looked down on them. So they couldn't get any help from anybody else. And he began to think, well, what can we do to help each other? We need to have a fraternity of men that can help our families, help each other in our community. And in thinking of that, he was thinking, a lot of these women and their children, a lot of times they lose their husband, and they're impoverished, and their families have to be separated. So he said, we need to start our own kind of program to help each other. So he came up with this program, this insurance policy, life insurance policy, for the families that raised a certain amount of money. Just you'd give so much, and if something happened, there'd be a benefit to the wife and the children to help them to persevere for a while.
So if your husband died, your
Yes.
widows so they wouldn't be left
Yes,
destitute.
they wouldn't be
Because back in the 1800s, when there were no social government programs to help.
No, so that was the main reason.
Right.
And then also a fraternity for the men to help each other. And if they stayed close and strong in their faith, they would unite and help each other when they see other families in need. They'd get together and go help them. It's kind of like I liked it because in the old understanding of the Catholic faith in New Mexico, people didn't wait for people to help each other. If they saw the family was building a house and they couldn't do it by themselves, they'd all go help. They didn't ask no money for it, they just help each other. Or if someone's car broke down, they just go do it and never ask for anything in return. It was always like a way of looking at charitably towards one another and say they need my help, I'll help them and I don't expect anything in return. Which is a whole different way of living compared to today.
So how did you become the state chaplain for the state of New Mexico?
Well, it was a surprise to me. I was preaching one day in Queen of Heaven in Albuquerque in a temporary assignments. I had 3 of them, and that was one of them. And Joseph Posey, the new state deputy, said he heard me preach and he liked me a lot. And I didn't even know who he was. He says, would you like to be the state chaplain? And I go, for what? And he was the Knights of Columbus. I go, well, it's up to you guys if you want me to ask. Well, he was supposed to ask the bishop first, but he didn't ask the bishop first. He sent him a letter saying, I found a state chaplain, this is who I want.
Oh.
But the bishop said, but he's supposed to ask me first, but you'll be fine for that, so I approve it. So
Oh, that's great.
it's kind of interesting.
And he's also a knight too, isn't he?
Yes.
Okay,
He's actually the major chaplain.
Yeah. Right.
But since he's so busy,
Yeah.
I take over for him or help him do
Right.
it.
So you're sort of like the rector of the cathedral. It's actually the archbishop's church, but he takes
Yes.
care of it for him. Yeah, that's
Yes.
that's great. Tell people what the Knights do here locally in New Mexico.
Okay, the Knights of Columbus try to, like I said before, they try to sell insurance for the Knights, for these families, to help them in case something happens to, it's just not for the man, but also for the woman if something happens to her, that they'll have a life benefit to help them. But also it's meant to be a fraternity of men to help each other to be strong in their faith and try to live their faith as the gospel would call us to. In order to be strong, we need fraternity. Because as we believe, as St. Paul says, apart from the community of believers, you can't remain strong at what your ideal that you're trying to live. So that's one of the reasons.
Okay. And what's been your experience working with the men and their families for the Knights?
A lot of them are very good men. They want to help their community. They want the men to be strong for the sake of not only just for themselves, but for their families, their wives, their children, and then also be concerned for the needs of the community. They should find ways to help and assist people in need in their communities, to live their faith. And that's not the faith to just be something that's we know, but to live it in a very concrete way by reaching out to those who are in need. Examples would be like, let's say, if some handicapped people need wheelchairs or something, they would try to find ways to raise money to help them, or maybe to go do something in their house to help them to make that house more accessible for that child or that elderly person that needs the help. A strong example would be was when Haiti, the thing happened there. The Knights contributed all the wheelchairs, and they promised to raise money to provide for new limbs for all those who had lost their limbs in that tragedy and Haiti. So it's always meant to be something reaching out to for the benefit of somebody, not for ourselves, but to assist them so it makes their life a little easier.
But there's also a benefit to the men and their families. Could you speak to that for a minute and say, for those who might be considering, maybe I could benefit by becoming a knight, and what would be the benefit for me personally?
The benefit would be that you have other men that have the same beliefs that you have, and you share each other's beliefs with each other, and you try to help each other to remain strong in that belief. Because by yourself you can't do it usually, as we say. You need a group to assist you and help build you up in your faith and give you encouragement when you become discouraged or just struggling with things. We all do. As I need a spiritual director, I seek guidance from my own friends as priests. They help me. They encourage me when things are rough. So it's good to have a group of friends and people to help each other.
Mm-hmm. And also, but your primary mission is, of course, as a priest, is administering the sacraments.
Yes.
And I'm a direct beneficiary. I just received the sacrament reconciliation before we did this program. How do the sacraments interact with the men and the knights and their families, or just people in general? Talk a minute about the sacraments and how they benefit people.
Okay, the sacraments, as we believe, are a visible reality to convey an invisible reality, that they're meant to strengthen us mentally, spiritually, everything. It applies to everything. Like the sacrament of penance is always keeping us, helping us to examine our lives to see if we're staying true to the ideal that we're called to live in Christ. And it tries to keep us focused on that, so we don't lose focus. It's not to diminish us. Yes, we should, in a sense, have a little bit of guilt. There's such thing as as healthy guilt. There's unhealthy guilt and there's healthy guilt. To keep us focused on our charitable beliefs and how we should treat one another. So it's meant to help us to rise above our weaker nature and gives rise to our stronger, better nature. So that it's always for our benefit as we believe the sacraments. And when we look at Christ and receive Christ as we believe in the sacrament of the Eucharist, that He wants us to make us arise above our lesser nature to give rise to our better nature for the good of not only ourselves but everyone else that we have to help in life. Mm-hmm. God places in our life.
And how about when times get tough and people are going through difficult life experiences? How does the sacraments in the church help in those situations?
Well, it's for me, there's sources of encouragement. It's like trying to encourage them despite the difficulties. It's kind of like a military commander when things seem hard. He has to find the right words to encourage his people and help them to arise about what they're going through. And it's always about God's grace trying to strengthen our will. And the will is where we need to be stronger, because the will is the one that can help us to overcome things by the grace of God when things seem like they're too hard. And many women and people and men know that because they've gone through those things, that they've had to make an act of their will when things seem difficult to overcome the obstacles, trials, and sufferings that they may go through. And the sacraments assist in that. They give the grace to elevate us when things seem difficult.
Okay. We've only got a few minutes left, but what advice would you have for those people who are non-Catholics out there who might be watching this program? How can they benefit in their spiritual life by these practices?
Always to examine your life every day. It's kind of like if you look at your checkbook or your job and you examine what you're doing because you want to do better at it and make sure your account's the way it should be. Well, this has to do with more with you as a person. Examine your life always. Am I striving for the best I can be? Am I, not for just my benefit, but for everyone else's benefit that God places in my life? Am I a source of strength for them? Am I a source of happiness for them? Am I a source of strength for them? And that's what it is to be for us as Catholic Christians. That's what it's supposed to be about. That we make people's lives better somewhere, make it better for them.
And people out there who are facing the challenges of the tough economy or troubles in the family, what recommendations would you have for them?
Well, always they need to just pray hard and ask God for the strength to endure, the wisdom to make good decisions in the situations they're facing, but to become not discouraged or despondent because other people are depending on them. It's easy just to want to give up, but that's not what we believe. We always strive and try to do our best no matter what. We never give up. We're never quitters. We always try to be strong no matter what. And we don't let, that's what the will is about. God wants to strengthen our will to overcome our feelings and what we may be going through externally in life. That the will is where, and the grace is where it's at.
And for people who are alone out there, don't have a family, and in the world alone, what would you recommend to them?
Well, if you're lonely, well then look for people that are lonely and need help. And when you give yourself to others, life means more. Everyone goes through periods of loneliness, and everyone does. Everyone says, well, I'm lonely. Well, everyone gets lonely. Even married couples get lonely. I get lonely. But the thing is, do I stay there wallowing in that, or can I do something to reach out to others that are feeling the same way? And then I'm not lonely. It's about giving yourself to others and seeking those who are in need and assisting them in life.
And finally, with children, because you used to coach and you've raised children yourself, family members and the rest, and those who come to you as a pastor, what advice do you have to young people today?
Well, the main thing is, you want to achieve your potential, and that is it's in the giving that we receive. It's not just taking. The taking is kind of diminishes us, and it's when we're concerned about others and we want to do things for others that we begin to grow, and we achieve our potential the way God meant us to be, a society in which we learn to give and be responsible for one another. And I always say, you have to take care of your mind, your body, and your soul. If you don't know how to take care of those three things, it's hard to be strong the way you need to be. So God gave you a mind to learn. Always seek to learn and grow. Always seek the spiritual, whatever your spirituality may be, seek to be spiritual. Always take care of your body the way you eat and physically. If we are not balanced in those, we can't be balanced completely.
Okay, that's great. One last word for the family out there, the people out there watching. Do you want to say one final thing to them?
Okay, when you're feeling down, just remember, someone's probably depending on you. We have to be strong for each other. My mom once said, she told me one time, I need you to be strong. I can't do it alone. So it's true of all of us. We need each other to be strong, or else it's too hard.
That's great. Thank you, Father Vincent. I hope that's been of some value to you at home watching this. It's been a pleasure for me here to meet you, Father, and to have you share some of your experiences with them. So if this has been of some value to you, we hope to hear from you. Please watch the credits. Our number and address will be there. Father Vincent is currently serving at St. Anthony's Parish in Pecos, and I'm sure he'll be happy to receive you if you have any questions for him. So on behalf of everybody here at Spirituality TV, I want to thank our director, Marshall, all the people behind the scenes, Casey and Stan and Ellen and George, and I want to thank you for viewing, and stay tuned at this time next week for another program on spirituality.